was the minister responsible for seniors in the Harper government. And so one day I came to visit her in British Columbia, and she said to me, "Pierre, we have to go and see our seniors. We're going to go to a seniors residence. These are the people who built our country." And I said, "Alice, they're not going to want to see a politician from Ottawa." She said, "No, you're going to be a big star." So I showed up and I walked up to a lady and I said, "Do you know who I am?" She said, "No, but if you ask the nurse, she'll tell you who you are." It's good to be made humble in politics, right? The mighty must always be made low, as the good book says. And that's really my story. I was born to a teenage mom. She was 16 years old, and she put me up to adoption to 2 school teachers. And they taught me that in Canada, it didn't matter where I came from, it mattered where I was born. It didn't matter who I knew, it mattered what I could do. And that's the country my wife came to as a refugee. It's the country we want for our kids and yours. But unfortunately, it's not the country that we see when we look around us today, is it? We see food prices rising so fast that 1 in 5 Canadians is skipping meals. 1.5 million eating at food banks. Some are even going to the Mississauga Food Bank to ask for help with medical assistance in dying, not because they're sick, but because they're hungry. After food prices have risen 12% in just 1 year. It's unbelievable. 9 in 10 Canadians, young Canadians, believe they'll never be able to afford a home. And if you don't believe me, watch Aaron Gunn's incredible documentary on home prices rising out of control in Canada because of the government gatekeepers. Many people are spilling into the streets, living in tents, tent cities. Here in Canada, one of the wealthiest countries on earth, crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are taking over our streets. Did you hear about the robbery that happened in Ottawa the other day? Unbelievable. Robber walks up to a guy, pulls a gun, and says, "Give me all your money." The guy says, "Do you know who I am?" The robber says, "No." The guy says, "I'm Justin Trudeau." And the robber says, "Well, in that case, give me all my money." But it's but it really is a dark time in Canada. Everything feels broken. In fact, you know that Justin Trudeau was supposed to have a fundraiser just down the street tonight, but all the Liberals were on strike, so they couldn't be there. But it really is an incredible achievement that he's spending 50% more on bureaucracy, and they've still gone on strike. Like, it's one failure to spend an extra $20 billion on bureaucracy. It's another failure to have the biggest public sector strike in Canadian history. But it takes an incredible achievement of incompetence to do both of those things at the same time, right? But he has done it. The good news is that we are going to transform the hurt that he has caused into the hope that Canadians need, aren't we? And you know how we're going to do it? With good old-fashioned common sense. We're going to rely on the common sense of the common people. That's the only good sense there is. Unfortunately, common sense, Kenny, you'll agree, is a little bit uncommon in Ottawa right now. But we're going to bring it home. We're going to bring home lower prices by eliminating the inflationary deficits and taxes that have caused the inflation in the first place. Let's go through them very quickly. Let's start with the deficit. Trudeau's added more debt than all previous prime ministers combined. Incredible. In 8 years, he added more debt than we added as a country in the preceding century and a half. And of course, that involves creating more cash. More money buying the same number of goods means higher prices. If you have 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 for each loaf. But if you double the number of dollars to 20, you still have 10 loaves of bread. Well, now it's $2 for each loaf. It's very simple. Instead of creating more cash, we should be making more bread. But that involves work, and what Trudeau would rather do is just create more money. He's been allowed to do this because of an undisciplined monetary system, which printed the money for him to pay for. We've increased our money supply by $400 billion, or 20%, in just a 2-year period. No wonder prices are rising so quickly. But there's a solution to that. We're going to bring in a common sense law called the dollar for dollar law. It requires the politicians find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending to run the finances the same way you run your household finances, right? That's what you do. If you want a new porch, well, you pass off on the vacation. Or you get a bargain on the vacation and you go and get some wood from the local lumber yard at a discount price, and you do both within the budget. There's no incentive for the bureaucracy to do that right now, because they can just turn over to the taxpayer and ask for more and more and more and more. Every creature in the universe, the birds in the trees, the fish in the seas, must live by the law of scarcity. Every creature except the politician, who passes scarcity on to you, the taxpayer, through higher costs. This law will require politicians to make the same trade-offs that you do, to maximize use of limited resources, to think either or, to get bargain prices and better results. When we were in office as Conservatives, our bureaucracy cost $20 billion less. You could get your passport on time, and we never had a general strike, right? That's what you do. You get better results for a lower price. But it takes, politicians have proven that if there are no legal limits on their spending, they will spend irresponsibly and will end up with inflation. Politicians should follow the same laws that you do. You've been pinching your pennies enough. It's now time for politicians to start pinching their pennies too. We're also, to do that, we're going to get rid of the deficit. So there's no longer any more debt that we're adding that drives up interest rates and inflation. And furthermore, we're going to get rid of the most inflationary tax ever invented, the carbon tax. Carbon tax was driving up debt. The costly coalition of the NDP and Liberals have increased the cost of gasoline already by 14 cents a litre. And they want to raise this carbon tax up to 41 cents a litre. More than double what it is right now. Your home heating bill will rocket. It'll mean about $2,000 for the average British Columbia family in net additional costs. Costs that people can no longer afford. The NDP and Liberals want to raise it. Conservatives want to axe the tax. We're going to tackle climate change with technology and not taxes. That includes harvesting our resources, building natural gas liquefaction plants so that we can send our natural gas over to Asia and shut down dirty coal-fired plants, which will reduce global greenhouse gas emissions while bringing home jobs and tax dollars to this country instead. That's the common sense approach. And we're going to make work pay. We've got to end the war on work, Alice. When Alice came here from Hong Kong, it was for one reason, to work hard. And she built an incredible life. But today, you get punished for working hard. There was a conversation between a little boy and his father. The little boy asked, "What is a tax form, Dad?" Dad said, "Well, it's the opposite of your grade 5 report card. The better you do, the more you get punished." That's how our tax system works. If you're earning $60,000 a year, yeah, it's true. So let's say you earn 60 grand a year. You're a single mom with 3 kids. If you go out and earn another $100, you lose $80 of that 100. If your extra hourly wage is $25, you lose 20 of the $25. Means you bring home $5 on that extra work because you get clawed back on your child benefit, you pay payroll tax, income tax, you're clawed back on some provincial benefits, and then you have to pay carbon tax and gas tax to get to work for that extra shift, which means we punish people when they work. A Poilievre government's going to do the common sense thing. We're going to bring home more powerful paychecks by cutting taxes and revamping programs to make sure that work always pays off. We're going to be a nation that works for the people who work once again. Speaking of work, our brilliant immigrants are banned from working in many of their own fields. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 33,000 immigrant nurses banned from working in our hospitals because they're not licensed by the local medical licensing body in their province. This at a time when we have a doctor shortage. Now, we all agree that everyone should have to live up to the Canadian standard if you want to work in our hospitals. The solution is to make it easy to do a test to find out if you're qualified by our standards. So here's my plan. a national blue seal standard to test every profession so that within 60 days of an immigrant applying to work in their profession, they get a yes or no based on their tested abilities, not based on where they come from. And we'll give out 30,000 small study loans so immigrant professionals can take time off work to study up to the Canadian standard, pass our high standard exam, and get to work. And we're going to make it possible for future immigrants to begin getting licensed to practice in their field before they even arrive in Canada, so that we can have more doctors, more nurses, more engineers, and more powerful inflation-proof paychecks for our brilliant immigrants. So listen, this is just common sense, but so is common sense that we should have more affordable housing in this country. You know, it's incredible. We have the most land per capita of any G7 country, even though, and at the same time, we have the fewest houses per capita of any G7 country. How is that possible? Most land, fewest houses. What's standing in the way? The government gatekeepers. Government gatekeepers block builders from building. In Vancouver, the cost of government bureaucracy for every unit of housing is $650,000. Can you imagine that? That all goes on to the consumer. And by the way, our woke city councilors like to tell you they're just being tough on developers. Developers don't care. They pass all the cost onto the home buyer. They don't pay any of it. And if it gets high enough, they just move and they build in other places across North America. Do you know that housing, the average house in the States is about 40% cheaper than the average house in Canada, even though they have 10 times the population on a smaller land mass. They have 10 times the demand and less supply, and yet more affordable housing. Why? You can get things built there. We are ranked 64th in the OECD for the time it takes to get a building permit. There are 63 other countries where you can get a building permit faster than here in Canada. Enough is enough. Our young people should be able to live in a house. I went to a house in Vancouver. It was listed for $5 million. $5 million bucks, and it was an old ramshackle place. And I called the realtor, and I said, why is it $5 million for this? She said, well, you can knock this thing down and build 6 units on it. I thought to myself, okay, that means it's $800,000 in land costs alone for each one of these 6 units of housing. So let's add another $800,000 for each one of them for labor, for paperwork, and for materials. So now it's $1.6 million. $1.6 million to buy 1/6 of the house that the average barber and waitress could have afforded on a middle income salary 50 years ago. In other words, today, 2 lawyers would not be able to buy what a local barber would have been able to buy 6 times over back 50 years ago. We're moving backwards. It's crazy. We've got to get the gatekeepers out of the way to build more homes. So here's my plan. A Poilievre government will link the number of infrastructure dollars a big city gets to the number of houses that actually get built, so that big cities are incentivized to speed up and lower the cost of building permits. I'm also going to sell off 15% of the 37,000 federal buildings we have. Big, ugly, empty buildings with work from home. They're not even being used. Let's sell them off to developers and turn them into affordable housing for our young people. And it warms my heart. Yes, thank you. You know, it warms my heart to think of the beautiful young family rolling up in their U-Haul to move in their beautiful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. And also, why is it, Alice, that Hong Kong has the only profitable public transit system in the world? Why is it? They build housing right over the stations. They sell the air rights, so the developers pay massive upfront costs to the government to build the housing, and then the young people can live right over the station. They get on an elevator, go right down. I'm going to require every federally funded transit station be pre-approved for housing all around and sometimes even on top so that our young people and our seniors can live right next to the bus or train. It's just common sense. You know? And then we're going to bring common sense back to our streets. We need to bring home safety again. Our streets have turned into war zones because Trudeau and the NDP have brought in catch and release. The same violent criminals who commit the crime in the morning are released on bail by noon to reoffend and sometimes commit 3 offenses in the same day. Do you know that in Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times? 6,000 times the same 40 people. It's 150 arrests per criminal per year. The police tell me that the criminals laugh at them when they get arrested because they know they'll be right out on bail immediately. Here's our common sense plan. A Poilievre government will replace catch and release with jail and not bail. Jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders so that people are safe on the streets again. And when it comes to drugs, right now the policy of the NDP and the Liberals is to flood our communities with heroin, crack, cocaine, and other drugs that they have now decriminalized. There was even a company here that got a license to sell cocaine. In fact, it was easier for them to get the license to sell cocaine than it is to get a passport in Canada, right? And we wonder why we have a drug problem. And they're funding the drugs with tax dollars. They're giving out hydromorphine, which is a powerful opioid. They even have vending machines where the addict can go up and press a button and have the drugs drop out. And then they say this is because it's a safe supply. It'll prevent overdose, right? That's what they say. Because the government makes sure it's not contaminated with anything. Well, here's what happens. The addicts get tired of those drugs because they're not strong enough. So they sell them to kids. And they take the profits to buy fentanyl. And they overdose. And then those kids use the hydromorphine for 3 or 4 weeks. And then they want something stronger. So then they sell them to some other kids and use the profits to buy fentanyl, which leads to overdoses. This, my friends, is crazy. The solution is not more drugs. The solution is more treatment and rehab. I'll take the money away from taxpayer-funded drugs and put it into treatment. That's how we're going to do it. And the powerful pharmaceutical companies who made all the profit flooding our system with these drugs, lying to our regulators, doctors, nurses, and our healthcare system in order to get rich. They knew they were killing people. They actually paid out bonuses to distributors who caused overdoses. They wanted to turbocharge their sales by misleading users. They got wonderful people hooked on drugs and destroyed countless lives. I'm going to sue these companies the same way we sued the big tobacco companies. The Americans sued these companies. They got $54 billion in recoveries as a result of the lawsuit. I'm going to launch a $45 billion lawsuit. We're going to take the proceeds of that lawsuit and use it to fund the recovery and treatment that will bring home our loved ones drug-free once and for all. And we're going to bring home our freedom again, aren't we, Alice? We need to be a free country again. It's unbelievable what we have happening. You know, just today, a report came out from the Public Health Agency in Canada, in which they actually said one of the big causes of health problems in Canada is we have too much individual liberty. I'm not kidding you. That was right in the report. They have this neo-Marxist ideology that believes that individuals are not smart enough or virtuous enough to make their own decisions. And that's why they say they need to censor the internet, control what you see and say online. They've imposed their woke culture on our university campuses, shutting down professors like Dr. Jordan Peterson, pushing him right off campus altogether. They don't want people to speak freely because they know they can't win a debate if it's an open and free debate. And so increasingly we see control from the top imposed on the people who do the hard work of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have something called Section 2B of our Charter of Rights and Freedom. It is freedom of expression. To be or not to be, that is the question. My answer is I will repeal the internet censorship law and require university campuses honor free speech if they want federal research dollars. As I was just saying, the ideology that our friends bring forward on the left is always the same solution to every problem. You name the problem, they have one solution. More power for them and less freedom for you. Let's go through it very quickly. How do they want to fix the environment? They want to tax you because they believe if they have their money, your money, somehow that's going to save the earth. How do they want to address racism or promote Canadian culture? They want to censor the internet because they believe if they control what people think, that everyone else will be better off. How do they want to deal with housing? Well, instead of letting builders build, they want everyone to live in government housing. Every single solution they offer involves more control over your life. But why would it be that if people are so flawed that they can't make their own decisions, that the same species of people would be capable of making decisions for others? You know, it's the great contradiction of their view of human nature. They think that man can't govern himself, but he can govern others. It's an impossible contradiction. They must believe that they're made of a finer clay, that they're of a higher standard, morally or intellectually, and therefore they can go at the top of a tower and run everyone else as though we're all part of their video game. That's really how they think. They're SimCity, that's right, the old video game, SimCity. Their view is that they are better than the common people. They call them ordinary people. But my friends, they are not ordinary. The waitress in this restaurant who's on her feet all day, serving 15 tough customers at a time, goes home and helps her child with math homework and balances her budget on a $15 an hour salary. She is not ordinary, she is extraordinary. Yes. The electrician who captures lightning from the sky, runs it through a copper wire to illuminate rooms like this one, captures the most powerful force in nature to light up our lives. He is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. The farmer that masters the storm and the soil to bring food from his field to your fork is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. These extraordinary people have the intelligence and the dignity to do the right thing in their own lives. If you want to see goodness, greatness, and even genius, don't look to those on top. Look to those all around you. They are the so-called ordinary, but in reality, the extraordinary people. They deserve to be masters and not servants in their own country. It is for them that we work. It is why we are in this. We are in this because we understand that minister means servant. Prime minister means first servant. He is the servant and not the master of the people. The people, the common people. The common sense of the common people united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much. God bless you.